Welcome to the Global Spin Podcast with me, Ryan Kramer, where we take a deep dive into the world of global selling and share the secrets to growing your brand in new markets. Whether you're looking to expand your brand, enter new markets, or boost your sales, we've got you covered. Tune in for unscripted, engaging episodes that will take you on a journey of discovery and success. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Global Spin Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and the brightest in the Amazon and e-commerce world. If you're new to this podcast, which it should be new, this is only episode number 2 of this beautiful show that I like to call, again, Global Spin Podcast. This is centered around what it takes for Amazon and e-commerce sellers to build their brand to the next level. I'm talking about taking it to other marketplaces that might be uncomfortable for you as a seller. We're talking about Singapore. We're talking about Europe. We're talking about Australia. The world is your oyster, and I'm here to help you figure out what the next step is. That's what this podcast is all about. But every episode is fueled by Frisbi. That is a company that's helping Amazon sellers take that next level into building their brand internationally, whether it be shipping, logistics, product compliance, and import of record. Frisbi helps all of those different situations come true and helping sellers grow their brand worldwide. Go and check us out at frisbi.com. You can check it out in the bottom, the URL at the bottom, and in the show notes below, we'll reference a lot of different links and articles and information that you might want to reference later on down the road. If you're watching us live, this is live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Or if you're catching this on replay, it will be on all those platforms as well. Best to go ahead and check out and follow us on YouTube, and all of those episodes, as well as other content, educational resources, will be there as well. Just search for Frisbi, or you can follow me on social media for those resources. So part of Global Spin Podcast is, or podcast journey, I want to say, is me reaching out to different sellers who I love their story. They have a lot of value to add. In episode 1, we had a lot of great things we wanted to tease with an upcoming talk we're going to have at the Prosper Show. It's adding Amazon to your global playbook. We had an amazing brand. If you didn't check it out last week, we had an amazing brand, Glorious Games, going back to keyboards and building their brand on Amazon and going into the retail world and really taking it to the next level when their international expansion. And then agencies with e-commerce Neuros. Karina McLeod was amazing to come on and talk about her helping brands grow in the global landscape. But this is my take on, it's not just about, hey, let's have a round table and talking heads. Let's talk about, again, the nitty gritty of a seller's journey and what it takes, the pros, the cons. What are the barriers that it takes to build a brand in a sustainable 7-figure business and growing it successfully or unsuccessfully? We want to uncover those truths. So today I have on a very special guest I've been very lucky enough to meet in person at various Amazon and e-commerce events worldwide, mainly in the United States, but he's Mr. Worldwide is what I called him. But I reached out when he showed me his numbers. It was just a comment. It was a passing. Didn't realize how many marketplaces he was operating on. I think we're going to confirm with him, but 12 marketplaces, multiple different countries, in currencies, and talking in different languages worldwide. He himself has many languages that he speaks, and he's from, and he has a very unique background. So that's why I wanted to say, hey, even though you're not a customer of Frisbi, and for full transparency, not a customer of ours, we want to bring him on for more insights and help with how global expansion looks. So that's why I brought in Antonio Bindi, founder of 11 Brands. And welcome to the Global Spin Podcast, Antonio. Let me go and bring you on. There you go. Oh, now I unmuted you. There we go. We're good now. Oh, now you got to unmute yourself. This is what happens on a live podcast. Go and unmute yourself, and we're good.
Hey, Brian, nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, we were chatting this beforehand, and I just wanted to be full transparent before even you got on here. You were worried that you were not a customer, but I wanted to talk about your insights because you have so much value that you're driving, and your story is amazing. That's what this podcast is about. That's first and foremost. So thank you for just spending the time. I know we were back and forth on all those different channels of which one's the best communicate. What do we want to talk about today? But I thought your journey in itself of creating a seller's a spotlight on what your journey has been as a seller is
Mhm.
is a episode in of itself. So thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So for people who haven't heard of you, Antonio, which they should, I call you Mr. Worldwide. I don't know if that'll stick, but as a seller, you're located where? Let's go ahead and get this out. Where are you located?
I'm located in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. This
Okay.
is my hometown. This is where my team is, and this is where I operate from.
That's amazing. So Rio, you grew up there. You was it something you always wanted to be an entrepreneur when you were younger, or what? How did your story? I call it the Amazon story. What was your Amazon story? How did we get here today?
I've always lived in Rio. I was born and raised here. I'm a former dentist. I don't know if you knew that.
I
I
didn't until today when I was doing my deep dive research on just a little prep of the background. I happened to see on our friends Bradley Sutton, his podcast, it showed in the transcript when I was reading through, I'm a dentist, and it flipped me out. I did not know that. How long were you a dentist?
I was a dentist for 14 years.
Okay. So we don't have to have any sort of dental coverage when it comes to yourself. Do you clean your own teeth, or what's that process look like in the family? Or are you like, hey kids, like make
I
sure we're
keep a
doing the same stuff?
I keep a family clean enough.
That's good. Well, health is always a high oral hygiene. My son has to get braces. Not looking forward to it, but I'm sure you can sympathize with the troubles and picking at it. And as an 8-year-old, teeth is the biggest issue. But so you were a dentist. What kind of, you were there for a long time? It's not a short amount of time of this is not my calling.
I was a surgeon and a endodontist. I did root canals, so I was one of those most hated kind of dentists around.
You were one of the hated people. People did not
Exactly,
want to be seeing you.
exactly. That's what happens to dentists, and that's what probably has the statistics around dental suicides.
Oh my gosh, that's well. So in
Horrible.
Brazil, is a common profession? I'm not. I've never been in Brazil, and I hope to change that very soon. Is that a common profession in Brazil, or obviously in the United States we have plenty of dentists? Is that a common
It
practice?
is. It is. Brazil. I believe we have the largest concentration of dentists in the world.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the biggest number of dental schools as well. Dentistry in Brazil is really, really good.
Okay.
Always has been. We're like second to Scandinavian countries.
Wow.
Although health in general is not as good. So the science behind and dental knowledge is really advanced. But of course, we have a very poor population which suffers with the lack of access. But mind you, it's dental care is not as expensive in Brazil as it is in the U.S. So
Right.
makes it more widespread.
So that makes a lot. So what is that a family push that put you
It
into that
is.
path?
It's totally a family push. I have my mom and dad are dentists, or they're retired now, but they're both dentists. They met in dental school. I was born, and if your parents make clothes hangers, that's what you're going to sell, right?
Right, that's true. And so they were conditioning you to be a part of the family journey, it sounded like, and you
Of,
followed through at the beginning, right?
of the dental clan, yes.
The dental.
That's how I was raised, and that's what I was taught to be. I was pretty good at it, to be honest. I was a good student in university. I was a good dentist myself. It was just not the passion that I had. I mean, dentistry is lonely. You're always with a single person in the office. They don't talk back to you.
I was gonna say that's one benefit or negative. If you're a conversational person, you can only talk
Exactly.
to them and your hands are in their mouth, so they can't talk to you.
They can talk back to you. So it's kind of lonely. And you know me. I'm not a very uh, introspective person. So
You're
I like.
sociable, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So that conversation, you're doing that, you said 8 years, correct me? Or how
Sorry.
long were you a dentist again?
I was a dentist for 14 years, but
14.
I graduated in 2000. In 2003, I started like a side business
Okay.
and ID wristbands for parties and events, and that's the business that I have till this day. It's now 20 years old. We're the largest ones in Brazil in ID wristbands. It's completely not related to dentistry, completely not related to my Amazon business, but it's something that brought me into the entrepreneurial world, taught me how to import, taught me how to sell. And this is something I ran alongside with the dental practice for probably 11 years.
Wow.
Until it became more interesting and dentistry became more of a burden than a pleasure to me. So at some point, I decided to put down the gloves and get into to e-commerce. So I was basically selling online, and
Okay.
that's what I did for probably the last 8 to 10 years, and then
Yeah.
Amazon.
When did the e-commerce journey start for you? What year are we talking?
So in 2003, that's when I started this business, and then that's where I discovered the the very beginnings of SEO. So we didn't even have Google back then. So I was in Yahoo, and I was able to rank my page in the first 20 spots in Yahoo for the keywords that I wanted, and did email marketing, did a lot of Facebook ad. Well, when Facebook came, I started playing with Facebook ads and Google ads. So although I was a dentist and I was dividing myself with this business, I was the one that was deep diving to the e-commerce side of the wristband business.
Okay. So you were
So
looking to
then,
how to monetize in a way that you can get up and running and in front of so many
yeah,
people so quickly. Interesting.
yeah, and that started with I built my first website on Microsoft Word, and I did. Don't let anyone listen to this, but edit this out. Just kidding. But I did a lot of spam back in the day that you had
Oh
like
no.
90% delivery rates, and a lot of people got to know my brand, and we just exploded.
So you were testing, you were pushing the limits from the get-go, what the internet was actually unfolding into. You were one of those on the precipice of trying different things in order to stand out, sounds
It
like.
wasn't as frowned upon 20 years ago.
That's true. There was no like real guidelines. It was just a,
Exactly.
hey,
Exactly.
we would love for you to sell and make it a good product, and the exchange was a little it was not as defined as it is today. So,
I
well, that's
literally
yeah.
had like 20 different domains appointed to the same website, and they all would rank. And that's how we pushed all the competitors down to the second page in Yahoo and Google, and that's how we came to be.
That's I mean, a story that I think is it finds itself as an intrigue and then becomes a passion and then it becomes an obsession, now becomes a business. So
Right.
you're doing this on the side of what's bringing in money for your family. You're doing this and you said you started selling wristbands. Is that
Mhm.
you're talking about like the VIP bands, like the plastic
Exactly.
bands or
Those are the ones. We do like the big concerts in Brazil. We do Lollapalooza. We do Rock in Rio, and everything else. Um, we're the largest ones where we do hotels, we do hospitals, we do everything.
and this is still happening. This is still a
It is.
brand that's public.
It is. I have a partner who's been with me for 20 years in the business. He's now
Wow.
running it and doing a brilliant job, while I'm like fully dedicated to the Amazon business right now.
That's amazing. So that's actually intriguing because one thing I always have this intrigue about with Amazon sellers. And again, if you're listening to this and you have a question, we already got a couple people on LinkedIn. It's a great conversation. You can't see it on LinkedIn, but I know on LinkedIn you're commenting. There's a great conversation. We'll make sure we figure it out on the back end who that is. So
Mm-hmm.
far, Antonio, a lot of people are very protective of their brand. I feel on Amazon, or it used to be of, hey, I'm going to tell you about all these really cool different ideas, but then I'm going to keep it so no one can use it against me, or something of like to hurt my brand. You seem pretty open to the brand you represent on both Amazon and then the wristband company. Is that a state of mind? Is that a
That is
fear of yours?
that is not true regarding the Amazon brand,
Got it.
unless you went you really you deep dove really well. I wouldn't expect anyone to know what the brand is. A few people do. I have friends in the business that I don't mind sharing, but I'm mostly secretive about what the brand is. So
got it. So anything that's posted on LinkedIn is a shell and a cover for what you really do.
On LinkedIn, you'll see 11 brands, but it doesn't say what the brands are.
Sure,
And
that makes sense. So is it so for clarification, 11 Brands is a conglomerate that you actually own, but it doesn't actually list out which brands you operate on Amazon.
11 brands is like the future state. We're now at 3 brands that we are running simultaneously.
Okay.
And my plan, and that's more of a mindset for me, but my plan is over the next 11 years, no, not 10, because I started this a year ago, this idea, but over the next 10 years to start, operate, and sell 11 brands. I want to sell 10 of those. And I don't want to sell like $50 million brands, like the huge deal, but a few good smaller deals, just packed and ready for sale. That's the game plan.
That's amazing. So you're living almost this. You're living what you're aspiring to, and naming a company after this is what I'm going to be achieving. This is who I am. So you have to embody that on a day-to-day basis. So super fast. So you started off Amazon. You're starting in e-commerce, and again, it's that evolution of you always hear if you started early on. You're talking about eBay. You bring up hey, I have 10 different websites pointing to one.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What's the first platform that you started making like recurring revenue on? Was it one of your own D2C websites, or was it a marketplace like an Amazon?
Our business in the wristbands, they are mostly B2B.
Okay.
But the business came from basically agencies and event organizers that were looking for that product, and we were all over the internet to be found. So the website, we didn't have any like real e-commerce in the website. It was more of a just a website that we took leads from it.
Sure.
And we would do some retargeting. We would do some emails, but social media, but mostly the actual website. So no specific platform, just our own sales force.
Right. They submit a form, and then you would have contact with them in certain capacities, email or phone call or whatever that looks like.
Exactly.
You said this is not is this a passion on the side, or how did you stumble into that product? I think it's always fascinating how people start their first business around a product.
That was completely random. I was at the dental office. I had just come from the States, and I bought some glow sticks. No, these the
They weren't
bracelets.
free. Typically, those are free. They hand out at the concerts or whatever.
I bought a few of those for a party that I was having, and in the States, and we didn't have those in Brazil in 2002, I believe. And I had someone. I was at the dental office, and some children were like throwing a tantrum in the waiting room. So what I did is I lit some of those, showed them to the kids. I look, shiny things, stop crying, and gave it to them. And the moms were like completely in love, and they wanted to buy that for their birthday party and stuff like that. And it was absolutely by chance. And so they asked me, can you sell them to me? Can I buy them more? Do you know where I can find them? I said, well, I can find them for you. And they're like, I don't know, $100. I had to pay like 20 or 30. I don't know. So I immediately tripled.
You marked up in your mind.
I immediately marked it up and sold it to those patients of the clinic. And they told their friends about it. And all of a sudden I was selling thousands of those a week.
Wow. So just by pure word of mouth, and you made it up on the spot, a business was formed, and now one of the foremost leaders in that space. That's such a cool story. I did not know that about you. That's really cool.
Yeah. That was completely by chance, and that's where my my entrepreneurial vein showed up, and I started buying and selling stuff.
Wow.
And since those were used as bracelets and necklaces, I started getting a lot of people asking me, so you sell those bracelets for events, right? For parties? But yeah, the glowing ones. Oh no. How about the ones with a stub? How about the ones for VIP? But I don't sell those. Until someone asked for a large quantity. I said, well, okay, I'll sell those to you.
Wow.
And then I found a supplier, and I started selling the wristbands, and that's how we became the biggest in Brazil.
That's amazing. So in that regards, and again, we have Antonio Bindi on of 11 brands, and we're talking through the story of kind of the entrepreneurial. What I hear when I've done over 250 episodes in podcasting before, how people start out is it's always seems almost by random choice. It almost seems something falls in your lap, or it was a passion that kind of like I found the gap in the market that solved my child's problem, or like you said, you're trying to shut up a kid in your dentistry office, and it became a multi, $1,000 billion or $1 million business. In that capacity, it just feels so random. But then you're asking what else, what else? You're open to new ideas.
Yeah,
That seems such a cool mindset. Do you look at yourself and think, what if I wasn't there that day, or where I would be if something else was,
I
no one
totally,
asked that question. If they didn't ask that question, how to make those
I
kids be
totally
quiet.
do. I have no idea what my life would be like today if I had continued as a dentist, or if I had not started that side business. And
Wow.
the same thing kind of happened to me with Amazon. I had no idea what Amazon was or what FBA. I mean, I was a powerful, big buyer on Amazon, but I had no idea what FBA was, and let alone the whole industry that we're so familiar with now.
Sure.
I had no idea this existed until I watched a YouTube ad. I was watching YouTube and some ad popped up of someone doing arbitrage. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Always starts with arbitrage, it feels like.
Yeah, like, oh, that's interesting. So I was living in Florida, and my wife and I, we were bored because the business that we were starting there did not go through because our investor backed off. And we were like, we had time in our hands, and oh, let me just watch 10 hours a day of YouTube videos on this new FBA thing that I just heard of. So I went deep. I started doing courses. I started going to events, and this was 2018
Okay.
and early 2018, and by August I was launching my first product.
That's so Amazon, how you were targeting people in your former business, someone was targeting you on this business and kind of spur this other
Yeah.
opportunity. So what about Amazon kind of intrigued you the most? You said arbitrage, but then you got deeper and said, hey, I can do this but better. Or I
Oh,
say arbitrage is not better, but I mean they're different. I want to build me over it.
I never touched arbitrage. It was just my invite into Amazon and to learning more about it. I
Makes
mean,
sense.
in probably a week, I realized that money was going to be made in, in, in private label. It took me a while. This was probably March. I only placed my first order in maybe June, July. Started selling in August. And of course, you have no idea if that's going to work. You put a little money and see how it goes. The idea was I'll buy 3 months worth of inventory. I sold out in 3 weeks. So I was out of stock for, I don't know, for the next couple months until the next shipment came in.
Wow.
And it just became organic and grew exponentially after that.
Wow. So starting in you said 2018, that's when you launched your brand. Is that what it
Great.
sounds like? Okay.
Yes.
So around then, I mean, a lot of people even go back. I got introduced to Amazon FBA in 2014,
Mhm.
selling for a wholesale and manufacturing in the home gift garden category. So really random products, really light, like flags and all around the world. And I saw Canada, I saw Europe, but I never saw like even more than that. But we were doing like D2C. We were doing a lot of different things. There's a lot of ways you can go. When were you trying to do it a lot at once, or were you just focused on Amazon when you launched this brand in 2018? Because a lot of people can say I can start in D2C and morph it over
Oh, no,
to.
no. 100% Amazon. And to the day, I'd be lying if I said that, but I do have sales on Etsy because my
Okay,
product resonates with Etsy. But that's probably like 1% of our sales in the US. But
gotcha.
it's there. I've been trying to start Walmart, but the international expansion has me completely busy. My whole team is absolutely busy with my idea of not going one marketplace at a time. as your title suggests.
You were telling me this.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a title. I have the graphic assets. We had he created them so fast I didn't get a chance to. We did it in the promotional ones, but not in the back end ones. So I'll kind of like chip on this. So your team, when I saw your comment on LinkedIn, and this has to be maybe 2 weeks ago. You were sharing this about Belgium. And I think it was with oh man, we were talking about the Belgium marketplace, and then you had shown your Seller Central app.
Defco and Post.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So you were just looking at it, and I was like, wow, he is. I sent you the clip of it, and it was like this many different languages. I'm doing this many currencies, which I'm very familiar with in a former life, and then also this many marketplaces. And then I sent that to you, and I go, "This is what I came up with based upon that comment." And he goes, "No, no, 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 no." Everyone, yeah, it was the funniest. Like I was laughing and crying in my seat. I go, "There has to be a backstory with this." So when I sent that to you, I said, "You're navigating the world one global marketplace at a time." You said, "That's the opposite of what I did." What do you mean by that? Like if you could tell a story of
Okay,
what.
so the timeline on this would be I started selling on 2018, early 2019. We activated NARF. So if
North American Remote Fulfillment Program for everyone
listeners are
who's
not familiar with that, it's basically where Amazon will ship your product from the US into Canada and Mexico through FBA, and there's nothing you need to do, just activate it, and sales from these countries will be automatically fulfilled. And we started doing that, and we had like borderline decent sales, just a little more sales than we usually have.
sure.
But NARF is extremely glitchy, and your product will be eligible, will come and go. Eligibility will come and go for the same product over months. So I started with like 90% of my inventory in NARF of my catalog enrolled, and all of a sudden, like I had 50%. I ended up with, sorry for that. I ended up with probably 10% of my catalog I've made available through NARF in Mexico and Canada.
Okay.
But I still continue that. If you remember 2020, we had the shipping crisis. Everyone was taking months to get a container congestion in the ports. So I was out of inventory, so I turned NARF off so I wouldn't hurt my US sales. I didn't want any available inventory to be dedicated to anywhere else.
Of course.
And when I turned it back on, it just didn't pick up. Nothing that I did made it work. And NARF is also not only it's glitchy, it's also very unsupported by Amazon. So
Gotcha.
you talk to seller support, they have no idea what you're talking about. They'll just close your case, and no answers are given. We didn't have like a NARF manager back then, and I pretty much gave up on that. And in late 2020, Amazon offered me to pay for my VAT registrations in Europe if I wanted to expand there. I already had like very decent sales. They reached out, so we want your products in Europe. We'll pay for your registrations, and we will pay for a whole year of your returns in Europe. And I said yes. So let's give it a try. In 2021, that's late 2021. I'm sorry.
And
So
Amazon, you said Amazon was reaching out to kind of prompt you and kind of
yeah,
invite you there.
at first it felt they were reaching out specifically to like larger sellers, but it seems that this was like a promotion that they had for a while back in 2021 and 2020. So in 2021, late 2021, it took me a while because the process is slow, VAT registration, and you can't ship products into Amazon fulfillment centers until you're VAT registered.
Sure.
And in the middle of that, Brexit comes. So instead of sending products to the UK in hopes that it would sell in the EU as well, I just had to sell to. I just decided to stick with the UK, and that's what I did for the whole of 2022. And last November, I decided to go full throttle and activate the four main um, marketplaces in Europe, which are Spain, Italy, France, and Germany.
There you go. You named them
But
all.
then again, they launched Netherlands, they launched Belgium, Poland, and Sweden, all by the end of 2022.
You're
And
right.
it's the same inventory. You don't have to ship anything else. You just have to create new listings, upload like new keywords. And we worked with our friend Yana from YLT to do the
Shout out
translation.
to Yana. Yep, absolutely.
She did a brilliant job. Our products are mostly variations of each other. So we had like it was a big project because we had like different colors, different sizes, different uses, different styles. But we ended up with a huge catalog of translated listings.
Wow.
It took my team, two people in my team, probably 2 months to get everything ready and uploaded while the products were underway.
Wow.
So in December, we activated all these new 8 um, marketplaces with, like I told you, 5 or 6 languages, three different. Just in Europe alone, it's four different currencies that you have to manage your financials, your PPC, everything. You have to understand what they mean, and of course the challenges of doing a new country with new regulations, VAT calculation, which is a lot different than we're used to in the US. So yeah, that's been challenging.
Got it. So, kind of backing up, there's a lot that you did in there, which is a lot to take on as one person, let alone a team. So when you entered these markets, you said you started in the UK and you kind of did that for a year. Were you taking part of the Pan European program, or what's the program that you're
So
part
we
of in
we
this?
were not, because when we started the registration, we were, because
Sure.
we began all this before Brexit, and the idea was that with Pan EU, you would have your products sent to one place, either UK or Germany, and it would be distributed everywhere else. With Brexit, UK was out of the game. So the inventory that we had in the UK for a while was just for the UK, and at some point they reinstated the EFN, the European Fulfillment Network, which is the parallel program of Penny Use. And we could start. What we did was we activated EFN for the 4 big countries, but you don't have the discounted rates that Penny U will give you.
Great.
So we decided to stick with the UK and Canada. In the middle of all that, in the middle of last year, we also sent our first shipment to Canada, which was really surprising. We thought that we would have like also marginal sales, and we 20x'd our sales in Canada from our numbers, from our best month in NARF, our first month in with actual inventory on FBA was 20 times more than my best month in NARF.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you're touting better numbers than what the Amazon Canada team tells us on a regular basis, and that is if you go from Marf just by having it on, which any new seller in the United States or North America, I should say, has it automatically flipped on now. It's a toggle that is automatically turned on. Your listing becomes available in Canada and obviously Mexico. But when you flip it on, or the difference between having that flipped on and directly sending to a fulfillment center in Canada, they say 4x. So you're
No.
what quintupling, quadrupling? I'm not sure even what the right word is. Quadrupling what is expected of just a normal business. So that's fantastic. So your business is obviously resonating with a lot of people. And there's people that say Canada's not worth my time, but on tradition, when you have sales, you can expect a 4x growth in that market, which is fantastic. So that was 2022, you 20x.
Yeah.
Wow,
We
that's
we, we,
fantastic. So yeah, go
we,
ahead.
we 20x the first month, and then of course we went out of stock because we had no idea that those were the numbers that we'd have.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but again, Canada is harder than the US to ship to, especially because you usually most of the population is in the Toronto area.
Right, the southern
So
part of Canada. Yeah,
so if you're shipping from the West Coast, you're shipping to Vancouver, but you can't deliver to Vancouver and they want you to send your stuff to Toronto, and that's a 15-day train haul after a 30-day wait. So it takes a lot longer to get your products in Canada if you don't have a West Coast fulfillment center designated.
gotcha. We'll have to talk a little bit after this about that because I know there's a lot of cool little hacks and solutions, and hopefully that there's for people with that. But so Canada, we have Canada going on. We have all of Europe. Have we
So
touched any? Yeah, go ahead.
let's do the English-speaking countries first
Let's
because
do it.
we have the PPC is pretty much the same. The keywords are the same. The volumes are different, but I don't have to hire anyone who speaks a foreign language, and that's why we went to Canada and UK first.
Gotcha. So yeah, part of the program is what in addition do you have to add on to this market? A lot of people ask the question, what else do I need to worry about if I go to those markets? Traditionally, if you go to Canada, if you're selling in Quebec, you want to maybe have a French translation optimally, but you traditionally don't have to worry about that too much. I know Yana would say otherwise, but I would agree with her, but you don't have to. In the UK, maybe a couple tweaks here and there. You might want to have it optimized and localized by
that's one of the main things that I tell people. Don't just translate. For the love of God, don't Google translate anything. But when you hiring translations, make sure you're localizing your translations because people in the UK they'll immediately know that that's not British English, and not only that, you want the keywords that let's get diaper caddy, which is a very common keyword that Brandon uses a lot.
Right.
Diaper caddies in the UK are nappy caddies. And
right.
if you have diaper organizers for strollers, they're not strollers, they're prams. So you have to localize because the keywords might be localized and they can be completely different. The same goes to French and Canadian French. There's some words that aren't the same. So you have to if that keyword that has a big search volume has a different meaning or a different keyword for it in another country, you have to make sure you're catering to them. Same goes for Mexico and Spain. Same goes for Dutch and Belgium Dutch. I didn't go that deep yet, but I'm sure there's something there that has to be adjusted.
Absolutely. And that's important too, because you're speaking to a client I know in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of joking around. If it's broken English, that's a common phrase that says that person does not feel like they know what they are talking about just because of how they are coming across in text form. It's not their fault, but that's how they're putting themselves out there. And that's a perception in the back end psychology that says this person may not be the foremost expert in this exact thing if they are not speaking coherently to the audience that they're
we know when we read US ads that are written in Chinglish, we can tell. I'm sure the Brits don't mind reading ads that are written in American English. They'll understand and they'll realize that most of the products are coming from America anyway. But the issue is not only the sympathy that they'll have towards the product, but also how will they search for the product and what will come up. So if you don't have nappy and pram, that's what they're searching for. So you're losing all of the traffic because you're not catering for the specific keywords they're looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, we did in the new Amazon product opportunity finder, for example, friend that we were doing a keyword research, and just to test out this program. And if you don't know, obviously in videos past, I've actually pointed to it. It's a cool tool if it reviews your Amazon ASINs and it can compare to the different marketplaces of keyword research. It's free within Amazon and Seller Central. You can look at it and actually search for volume. So you can see 360-day views, not 365, 360. I've double checked the number in terms of keyword. If it's going in popularity, if it's decreasing, it's a very simple and basic, keyword research tool, but it shows you kind of those top searches for those top products in those categories, which is super interesting. We search for camping blanket, very common term, I would think, here in the United States, something that you keep warm when you camp because it gets cold out. Not a phrase that's used in Germany, not a phrase that's used in England. It was camping gear and camping. It wasn't even blanket. Blanket never showed up, but that was the top keyword in the United States. So again, you're marketing your best keyword may not even translate to a simple English translation market like the United Kingdom, because that's not a phrase that they're familiar with. So just an example.
Well, same happens in the States. So half of the States calls fireflies, and the other half calls them
lightning bugs.
Lightning bugs, exactly. So you have to be aware of that even in your own country. But yeah, localization is a big one. Cultural differences and product selection may be big. So maybe a product that's super popular in the States might not be in the UK.
Okay.
And vice versa. When I was doing my research, I found that chimney sweepers were super popular in the UK, and I don't think those would be in the US, or maybe not as much.
Not as much, no. I mean, I know what you're talking about. I always think when I hear chimney sweep, Mary Poppins, and
Mary Poppins,
and
exactly.
that movie. But it's an actual job and trade that happens, or a job that happens in the UK. Not popular here. There's people that's clean out the flue. That's all I know. It's just a service.
Yeah.
So I don't know a product that would match it.
So many products that are very popular in the US won't do well in the States. So in the UK. So UK, you don't have tailgaters. You don't have all the outdoorsy community. You know, it's different. So don't assume that your product will do well in a country that maybe has no idea what your product's for.
Absolutely. Well, I have a question. So obviously, I mean, very much in that realm, you're talking about localization, and that actually appears to not just text, but we're talking about imagery. I think imagery would be a very big component too, to make sure that you're portraying. I think my favorite example I've ever done was when you're talking about family gatherings, right? What that looks like, how it represents that buyer pool of not just a cookie cutter family. It really depends on what that family aspect looks like, and you're putting your product into that family. So you have to even think further of, does that family and that imagery reflect locally of what this product is going to do?
I have a personal case in that subject. If you're in home and you're selling like home goods and kitchenware and I don't know, home decor, American kitchens are very different from European kitchens.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
they're very different from Brazilian kitchens as well. So I had a very hard time finding a location in Brazil where I could photograph, where I could take pictures of my products. And we decided just to go with American photographers who would shoot products in their own homes, just because, you know, they had the American kitchen, they had like a fireplace with a mantle, and you know, a nook, things that you don't have in Brazil or probably in many European countries. So if you're in home decor, if you're in home goods, have in mind that your pictures may not resonate with your audience as well.
Absolutely. So doing that, obviously, so we talked about like English speaking countries. You go into a different altogether. Maybe, I mean, I know you speak multiple languages, correct?
I speak 3 languages.
3 languages. Okay. Still multiple. That's 2 more than I do. Very well. When you go into those different markets, what was the biggest challenge initially as a seller? So you said you started with Pan EU, you were in UK. Those seemed like the easy ones, to traditionally the stepping stones that most sellers make. you go into these uncomfortable markets, I would say, that stretch you in a couple different ways. What was the most uncomfortable thing, I think, that
I
you would
think
say?
the thing we struggled with the most at the very beginning was with our finances and VAT calculation.
Hmm.
Not because VAT is complicated. It is. It's pretty much like sales tax, but it's very different than sales tax. So here how it goes. If you have $100 in the States and you sell it through Amazon, Americans know that they'll pay 107 or 106 for it because that's plus tax.
Right.
VAT in Europe is embedded, is inclusive in the product price. So it's 20%. So if you're selling an $80 product, you're actually selling it for $100 and
To get 80.
you're getting 80. But Amazon charges fulfillment, their referral fees on price with VAT. So it's 15% on the total price. So you're actually paying Amazon 15% on sales tax.
On a tax.
Yeah. So if you're doing €100 product, £100 product, you're actually making, or your revenue is 80, but you're paying 15% on the 100. You're actually paying 19 point something percent of what you're expecting to make.
Right.
And the same goes for ACOS. And we took a while to understand that our ACOS was based on the final price and not on our proceeds from the sale.
Wow.
So that goes for, so if we had if 25% was a good ACOS for us in the States, we had to aim at 21, 20 in the UK, just because that's how much it would actually represent from what we made from the sale.
And yeah, that's a wash. I mean, that's equal then. So even though the numbers may not add up initially, the final product,
In the accountant's perspective, what they care is you want 80 for the product, you must charge 100 because you're paying 20 to the government. Great, but the way we price products, you'll know that we go around what the competition's doing. So if everyone's selling a product for £30, you can say, well, I have to sell mine for 36 because I want to keep 30. You have to sell yours for market price, or if that's the game, if you're starting, if you're launching a product at least. Now you're being bit by Amazon in 15%, by the government in 20%. So your 100 just became 65, and then you have your ACOS. Good, if that's another 20% or 25, you're down to 40% in margin, and I haven't even put in COGS.
I was gonna say, you're just scratching the surface there. So,
yeah.
Well, I mean that I keep going back to it. My favorite talk is to always do the math to make sure that it works for you. And knowing, I'm assuming you advise your team, we're not going to a place where the math doesn't work in our favor. It doesn't make sense. And I don't think a good business would ever advise go to a marketplace that doesn't make the numbers work in your favor. If I'm a seller, what resources am I using in terms of, hey, I need to look at all these different calculations or breakdowns and things like that. What basics do you need to start with?
You have to talk to your accountant and understand how the math goes. So your typical profitability spreadsheets, or the profitability chart from Helium 10 or whatever software you're using, they do not account for that, and they do not account for the fact that your final price will be reduced in that scale. So you have to adjust your pricing worksheets or spreadsheets to take into consideration where VAT is applied. So you have like import VAT. When you sell the product, you have the sales VAT. You pay the difference. It's more complicated than it seems, but you need to have your accounting team working with you, and I would not recommend doing it once a year. You have to understand it from the get-go.
So if I were to wrap up this notion, obviously we're just scratching the surface, and for every business, it's always going to depend. It depends on the product, depends on the category, depends on where you're selling. For you, what advice would you give for a seller who's now just starting to go into these markets? Again, you're covering a lot of bases at once. Are we talking about do one at a time and kind of get really comfortable with it, or is it a pan-European approach?
I would really recommend starting out with the UK the way I did, going with one tax provider, one currency, same language, getting used to it, and we did. When we started the EU, we knew everything that we had missed on, and we did. We sold for probably 3 months in the UK, having no idea how that worked, and probably unprofitably for the first couple shipments until we redid all the math and said, oh well, that's not how you do it. So we need to rework this. So start out with UK, same language, same PPC basically, one tax provider, one currency. When you're comfortable enough, when you know your numbers, when you have absolutely certainty of what you're doing, then expand into the four big ones. Have it all set up though. Have everything set up for to pull the trigger as soon as you decide to. And remember that shipping into Europe is far slower than shipping from China to the West Coast. So a shipment that typically takes 25 days from port to port. In the UK, that could be probably 40 days, 45 days.
You're talking ocean freight, yeah.
Ocean freight,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
For sure.
So obviously different ways to get into those markets.
Yeah.
Most cost-effective way across the board is always going to be in bulk or in ocean freight, whatever discount. But again, obviously the quickest way, air freight or even small parcel. As we all know, there's so many different options when it comes to entering those markets. So Antonio, I know I could talk with you multiple more hours, and I'm sure we will in the near future. But kind of wrapping up, we had somebody enter, and I want to kind of give some shout outs to people who are listening. Leo from Brazil, thank you for tuning in on YouTube. Let me go ahead and put those away. And a couple, Neil actually, master variation listings, lots to learn from him. Look at you getting shout outs here on YouTube. And Antonio, Andre, former podcast guest of mine, as a beast and the best. Yoni asked the same thing when I first saw you. Where's the beard? You have to ask him off camera the story with that, Yoni. And then Bindi rocks. So lots of different comments on YouTube. But we do have a question from Neil. So Neil asked, what is the process for listing optimizations in foreign markets where traditional keyword research software might not work so well at all? Great question, Neil.
We're using data from where it's available. So if we find keywords that we do data dives on all of our listings throughout all the countries where we have data on formerly Helium 10, but data dive just changed their
to Jungle Scout recently.
I'm not sure how that's going. I'd have to ask my team. But
ask Brandon Young. We'll point you to Brandon Young. Search with him, or search for seller or seller systems, or go to Data Dive or Anthony Francisco. So if you have a question about that point, we'll point you
I need to ask my team.
Gotcha.
Has been for the other countries, but
gotcha.
We used to have a pretty decent data on keywords. Of course, the volumes are much lower. Some if you're doing brand analytics, you probably don't have much information there. We use a lot of brand analytics information for our keyword optimization, but mostly, competitors. We have spreadsheets that auto translate, so we can know what we're talking about, because you'll download these bulk sheets. Well, not bulk sheets, but these lists of keywords, and you don't know what they mean. I mean, I can speak Spanish, Italian's pretty easy, French I can understand, but when it comes to Polish, Sweden, and Dutch, I'm completely lost. But we'll optimize based on whatever softwares. I don't think we did any Swedish optimization at all, or Polish, but for the main languages, we use what Helium 10 offered us from Cerebro.
I'm going to put another resource that became recently available. Neil, it's called, it's from the friends at YLT. It's actually called YLT Translations of More. So it is actually a a look into profit about missing not going global. So it's a cool new tool. I'm not sure, Antonio, if you saw wind of it or not, but it's Amazon Marketplace Opportunity Report. So they do keyword research, what your competitors might be doing. There will be charged for it because it's a research that's done with the data and analytics that YLT has available, but it's a really cool tool. If you're looking for something free, the Product Opportunity Explorer on Amazon and Seller Central became available in October. I would highly suggest check it out. It gives you data from based upon your ASINs, and then it can looks at those top 4 that Antonio said. UK, Germany, Spain, and France, Italy as well for the 5th one. But yeah, you can take a look at those to see what the it's a cool service. We just got wind of it, but definitely a fantastic question. And I think one more before we just have time. How do you delegate the roles of your team, Antonio? Do you have different departments for all these countries? Good question.
That's something we're working on. We've been working on for the last few weeks, and we'll be working on over the next few weeks. I'm building a matrix of synergies and how to divide my staff and between countries and product lines, because you may have a product line that does really well in the States, and you could probably have its own product manager for maybe three parent ASINs, but then you don't need that same workforce or the same dedication for the whole of UK. We can have like a product manager that does all of our products in the UK, and another one that does all of our products in Canada. And our 4th person will do all of our products in the rest of the countries. Now, if you start doing PPC, so this matrix works for product management, but it may not work for shipments. So my logistics person, we're now hiring a 2nd one just to take care of Europe, and they may not take care of the whole of Europe, but just the UK and separately mainland Europe. If you're working with PPC, you want someone that takes care of all of the English languages, all of the English-speaking countries, but not all of the US, because that's too much. So we're kind of building this map of where our products are and what the countries are, and separating it by roles in the company as well. So I may have one person doing all of the English-speaking countries, but I won't have that for logistics. I may have someone in logistics doing all of Europe, but I might split product management throughout Europe. So it's not a team per country, but it's mostly dependent on what the role is and what the synergies in that role are for each region.
Good advice. That's very good. And obviously for each team, and depending on how big you are, you've been around a little bit more, that you have a bigger inventory that you have to worry about, or more ASINs. It really just depends on making sure you don't stretch yourself too thin. Makes a lot of sense.
We're shipping weekly containers to US, but we're doing bi-monthly containers to Europe and monthly containers to Canada. So the rate is different, the demand is different, and the number of SKUs that we have is different as well. So the complexity for the US, we probably have like a dedicated person for each role in the US, while we can use some shared workforce for the other ones. So it's a work in progress. We're actively working on this matrix.
Absolutely. We already got a thanks out of it. So hopefully that answered your question, Bandito. That was an amazing way to end it. You had teased the matrix, and I know, Antonio, we were talking about it's not necessarily ready for, I think that's like part 2 of like the 10-part series that I can get out of you, I think. But what are you working on in 2023? What's that goal for you, and what's you and the team's ambitions for this year kind of moving forward?
So we're launching a new brand by the end of Q2. It's already products are being manufactured. We're about to launch them as soon as they're ready to go. We're also launching our main brand in Mexico, which that's also part of the international expansion talk. Mexico has like completely different requirements. I can't use them as the same entity. I have to open a company in Mexico. We could do a whole
That's a whole podcast, and we'll be hitting
podcast
on
about
that, I'm
Mexico.
sure, in the
Yeah,
future, for
yeah.
sure.
And so Mexico, we're ready to go. We have a company there. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet because of bandwidth. But the team doesn't have the bandwidth to do Mexico right now.
It's a good sign, though. It's a good sign that
Yeah,
you guys are growing. So,
yeah.
I mean, so you're working on that. You were talking about the Matrix. Mexico's on the roadmap. Are we going to see you at some trade shows? Are we going to see you at
Oh yeah,
Prosper or
absolutely.
anything like that?
Absolutely. I'm doing Prosper in March. Is it March or April?
March. It's coming up. It's in less than 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
So I'm coming to Prosper. Probably a few of my teammates are coming with. In June, I'll be speaking at the $1 Billion Seller Summit, Kevin King's in Puerto Rico. So if anyone's planning on going, we can meet up there. And on the trade show side, we're probably doing MDS as well in Istanbul in September, I believe.
That doesn't suck. That sounds nice.
Yeah. If the country recovers from yesterday's terrible earthquake.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. There's a lot going on in the world, and that's the thing is people get overwhelmed. But it sounds like you have a good head on your shoulders, a good team around you. I think that's the key I'm taking away today. You got to learn and grow, and have the people and support system around you, and then continuously grow and don't bite off more than you can chew. That's a great takeaway. But my friend, I'll definitely see you here in March. And I always like to end everyone who comes on the podcast, if they make it through an hour with me, they're now a friend of the show. So I'm making up some cool stuff. Hopefully I'll be able to get this sent to you here shortly to thank you for your time here on the Global Spin podcast. But if people want to reach out, they have questions, how can they best reach you, or where can they connect with you?
I'm several groups on Facebook, easy to find, Antonio Bindi. Also in LinkedIn, if you want to connect through LinkedIn. I usually prefer to connect in Facebook through groups because the discussions build
more open and honest. Yeah,
more open and build. But if you need to ask anything more private, send me a message on LinkedIn. I usually don't respond to. I usually don't see random messages on Facebook, but LinkedIn, I'm hard to get a hold with.
It's hard to get a hold of. I tried 3 different ways, guys, and it was a test to see which one he responds to quicker. It was awesome. But hey, thank you so much for. Yeah, go ahead.
No, send me a message. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I'm also super open with my knowledge.
Amazing. So we linked out in the show notes. If you're going ahead and you're not on LinkedIn, go ahead and check out the notes on YouTube or Facebook. Should be in the bottom, a link to his LinkedIn page. Send him a quick DM and ask your questions. Let him know that the Global Spin podcast sent to you or Ryan Kramer sent to you. So, Antonio, thank you so much, my man. Thank you so much for providing just excellent resources and value to the seller community. Congrats on your success so far. I'm excited to see your global sales journey continue, and we'll be talking more offline after this. So thank you so much for coming on and being on episode 2 of the show.
Thanks for having me, and it was a great pleasure. Great talking about the subject that I really like.
We appreciate that. We love the passion. So thank you so much. From dentist to 7-figure seller, Antonio Bindi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for coming on the Global Spin podcast, fueled by Frisbi. Again, if you haven't followed us on social media, go ahead and follow at Frisbi on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or follow Ryan Kramer at LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm on all the I'm on all the channels, and you'll start to see our audio versions pop up on our favorite podcast destinations where you can listen to and go back to the other notes that we might have discussed here live. Go ahead and subscribe to those channels when they become available on Apple, Google, Stitcher, all your favorite podcast destinations. I'm Ryan Kramer. This is the Global Spin podcast, fueled by Frisbi. We'll catch you guys next time on another episode. Take care until then.